All right. We have a new chapter, section 7.1 here. Zeros as exponents. Those working at home, you're going to want to pause the video, but some examples. Anything to the 0 power. If you take a to the 0 power, you get 1. But it doesn't matter what the number is. Anything to the 0 power is always 1. So up here,
it's frozen.
Our prime example. A to the 0 power is 1. 4 to the 0 power is 1. If you raise something to the 0 power, it's 1. Now this one says negative 3 to the 0 power. That's 1. That's different than this. I want you to look at the difference between this one that I'm underlining and this one. There are things called an order of operation. This one, the whole negative 3 is to the 0. So anything to the 0 is 1, but this one would be negative 1. Because you would first take 3 to the 0, which becomes 1, and then you would multiply by a negative. So the answer to that one's negative 1, because the negative isn't in parentheses. Here it says 5.14 to the 0, that's 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Now, a negative exponent. If you have 7 to the negative 3, you make it 1 over 7 to the 3. We will not leave things with negative exponents. Negative exponents will shift from the numerator to the denominator, or the denominator to the numerator. This one says negative 5 to the negative 2. It would become 1 over negative 5 to the 2, which we could take it one further. A negative 5 times a negative 5 is 1 over 25 if we expand that one all the way. Now, 0 to the 0. There's only one number. That's undefined. 0 is a unique number. If you have nothing, you still have nothing. So if we were to take 0 to the 0 power, it's the only one that we say is undefined. Okay? Okay? 0 can't equal 1. That's the main reason for that. All right, we're going to go through these and look at some of these. What happens if I have 4 to the negative 3 power? What that becomes is 1 over 4 to the 3rd power. I want positive exponents. Okay. So we're in the example 1 section here. Okay, everybody see it? Making sure. Anything to the 0 power, since the whole thing is to the 0 power, that becomes 1. 3 to the negative 2 power. We move the 3 to the bottom. This technically, it's in the top, it's in the numerator. And we would move it to the bottom and we'd make it a positive 2. And there's still a 1 up there. Now I want you to understand something. If you're like, where do these 1s come from? Did I move that 1? You didn't move the 1. Okay? This originally can be written like this. It can be written as 1 times 3 to the negative 2 over 1. Because 1 over 1 is still 1, and 1 times anything doesn't change. So the only thing that is moving is the 3. And by moving it to the bottom, it becomes 3 to the positive 2, because you've moved it. So this one is still there. This one is still there. We just don't see it anymore. And the 3 now is a positive 2. That's supposed to be a positive 2 in the bottom. So this one, still a 1 in the top. The negative 4 moves to the bottom. And it becomes a positive 2. Now, many of those as we go, we can simplify them more, but we're going to leave them that way for now just to get this idea of what to do with negative exponents or exponents of 0. Okay? form always has no zeros, so you won't have the zero exponent, or negative exponents. Now it says simplify, so take a moment to change these around. See if you can do these 5. I'm going to give about a minute here. Everybody try it. All right, this first one. We move the x to the bottom, it becomes a positive 9. The negative exponent, we don't leave it with negatives. We move it to the bottom, it becomes positive. Now this one's the opposite. Since the negative's in the bottom, I'm going to move it to the top. It becomes n to the positive 3. Then you might say, where'd the 1 go? It's still there. There's a 1 down here, there's a 1 in the top. So technically this same 1 stayed up there, this same 1 stayed down there. We just don't write it. We just write it as n to the 3rd. And it moved to the top because the negative exponent in the bottom does the exact opposite. Since it's in the bottom, we don't want negative exponents. We move that up to the top. This one. Now remember, it could all be put over 1, and sometimes that helps. What we need to move, the only thing we need to move is the c. The c needs to go to the bottom because it has a negative exponent. The b and the 4 don't have negative exponents, so they're not going to move. So this answer is 4b over c to the 3rd. The only thing that moved is the 1 with the negative exponent. It moved to the bottom. So this one has a negative exponent. We're going to move that. So it's going to move up to the top. It's going to become 2a to the 3rd. So it has a negative exponent. The m2 does not have a negative exponent. It's going to stay where it's at. It doesn't move. It's a positive exponent already. The n5 needs to go down. And if everything disappears, we still have a 1 in the top because there was a 1 as the coefficient there. All right, this one says evaluate when n is negative 2 and t is negative 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is this. We're going to shift this around. W to the 0 would become 1. Anything to the 0 is 1. The n has to move to the bottom and it becomes n to the 4. Now that'd be the first step, but this one has a separate thing on it. It says evaluate. It says n is negative 2. So I'm going to type that in. So if you have a calculator, you go 1 over negative 2 to the 4. I'll bring up a calculator here. We'll get it eventually. I'll come back to that one while the calculator comes on. All right, this next one. The w to the 2nd stays in the bottom. The n moves down. Then we'll put in w, and we'll put in n. Now we don't have anything for w, so this one would simply remain 1 over negative 2 w squared. We don't have anything to put in for w, so we're not going to put anything in. Getting back to the other one, 1 over negative 2 to the fourth. Two times 2 times 2 times 2 would be 16. So it's 1 over 16. And a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative. There'd be 4 negatives that would turn to a positive. So this one, final answer is 1 over 16. This one, anything to the 0 is 1. I don't know if this was supposed to have something to put in for W, but it doesn't, so I'm not putting anything in. This one, the W's got to move to the top. And N can get replaced with negative 2.